Hey there, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for
Unspun.
It is Unspun. And once again, George served up even when you had to schedule our taping a little bit late. Thank goodness you did.
So much going on again.
Well, the BC legislature.
Plecas is back.
What is happening? Honestly, it should be a reality TV show that is played on the CBC nightly a la Coronation Street, except for as the ledge turns. It's something else. Like, okay, what happened starting last night? I'm not really familiar with what went down last night.
I saw some tweets and they were from Vaughn Palmer and I think Rob Shaw. I think the two of them were just watching what was going on in the hallways of the ledge, and there was people going in, like some kind of like I don't know, those comedy shows from the 30s where there's people going in and out of doors, but usually it's in a boat and there's other things that are related. But there's I'm thinking these terrible movies from Britain in the 60s, those ones.
Yes.
So yeah, there were people. There was Farnworth, there was Plecas, there was the deputy clerk, or there was
wasn't Wilkinson there too?
Wilkinson, there was Jeff Meggs. They were all like going around from
and they're on Twitter. We're getting the updates, and now they're walking out here, and now this one, so and so's going in here first. That was usual. You're like,
it's so weird.
What is happening?
So weird, and it all comes back to Plecas again.
That happened on
the man who keeps on giving when it comes to chaos at the ledge.
But George, haven't we learned, with regard to sort of having a perspective or judging what Darryl Plecas, current Speaker of the House, might be up to? Initially, when he walked Gary Lentz and Craig James out of the legislature back on November 20th, we thought, what are you doing? How dare you? Mm-hmm. And then comes to light after some investigation that there's more going on here that does deserve a light to be shone on it, no question.
He daylighted some real problems at the legislature, absolutely.
So here we are once again in a position where, okay, not the greatest people manager is what you said earlier.
Well, that was in the report. And so the issue that's come to light as what was going on was he's demanding or asking or requesting that they
It's voluntary, but it's like voluntold.
Yeah, voluntold.
Like you're being
favorite word.
My favorite.
It's very, you made it up, I think.
No, I didn't. It came from a place that I worked at.
Okay,
you know who you are. Yeah. But he's saying, I'm going to clone your computer. I'm going to mirror it, and I'm going to keep every single file that you currently have and everything that you will put on there.
Right.
We will, as what did they call it? To make data secure.
Okay, so I'm confused. Okay, first of all, have you ever? Okay, these computers are already owned by them, so they can, and you work there, so you assume.
My phone.
You assume that everything is accessible to the boss.
It's a postcard.
Yeah, and so how would you feel if your boss, wherever you were working, said, "Hey, Jody, I need to just copy your hard drive, okay?" I mean,
I'd say, well, what are you suspicious of me for?
Exactly.
Like, why not come clean on why?
Is there a problem? Do you have a trust issue with me? That, I think, is what's going on. I think these staff who are dedicated, who were not involved in any of this craziness.
Right, because it's Kate Ryan Lloyd.
Very respected.
Acting clerk. So she came in for the clerk who was put on paid administrative leave. And then Randy Ennis, who also had stepped up.
Yes.
Given the recent upheaval. And now Kate Ryan Lloyd has resigned, and Randy Ennis.
I don't think, has she?
No,
Ennis resigned.
Took early retirement. No, it was Hux.
Hux, yes.
Yes, who also
Hux.
No, we got to learn. It's all happening so fast.
It is. So the two people, they've resigned. And
Kate Ryan Lloyd was upset.
Yeah, she was crying, apparently. This is what they were saying last night, that she had, she looked like she was upset. And Plecas' response was like, well, she's, a very sensitive woman. Really? I mean, and then I saw the scrum with him today, and they asked him, well, do you think any of this, these staff issues and people quitting has anything to do with you, and you as a boss? And he's like, well, no, what? No, you have to ask them. Okay.
And these are the things that make me a little crazy, George, because when Darryl Plecas defected, basically, from the Liberal Party to become the Speaker of the House, right, got kicked out. Because he was like, okay, I'll be that guy. I'll be the Speaker of the House. Yeah. And created an opportunity for the NDP Green Party to have the government that they currently do and the balance of power as the tight margin that it exists in now. What qualifications did Darryl Plecas have to move into a role as a manager, as a people person, as an overseer, as the head guy. Like, he's the head guy.
He's the CEO of the legislature basically.
And clearly needs, as you pointed out earlier in our meeting, maybe some people management courses. I don't know.
Or maybe understand your weaknesses as a manager
Yeah.
and hire people who can manage that part of it, like the people management or whatever it might be. The thing is that there's an RCMP investigation ongoing. So anybody who is doing anything nefarious with their computers is clearly an idiot if they are, because
They deserve what they get then.
I mean, the police have complete access to all this stuff. So what would you possibly be doing that would be a problem? What the latest issue on this, or latest development, was the Liberals offering up a replacement, which would make the Liberals even weaker, the NDP stronger, because they have a Liberal in there and who is meant to be neutral, and Plecas
Doesn't
would
get a
be
vote, per se.
independent. Yeah, it doesn't really get a vote, but they would have a strong. And Horgan said no thanks.
That shocks me. That makes me go, what?
Well, here's where I think.
Okay, unspin it.
Let's unspin
Here
it.
it is.
And Trump is the king of this, as we all know, of creating diversionary tactics. He uses Twitter. He loves just they're doing a whole bunch of stuff that we don't even talk about, or they don't talk about in the media, because they're so busy talking about his tweets that they forget. So I feel, in some ways, that Horgan is kind of this whole Plecas thing is actually helpful, because they get to push through and get all this stuff done. And,
It dominates the headlines.
Yeah, and the media
It
are
takes
so
the news
busy
cycle.
running over here. Meanwhile, Jeff Meggs and all those people in Oregon and all the gang over there are doing their thing,
Are just like-
getting stuff done. It's diversionary, and and putting through things and changing stuff and structures and this and that. 16 new taxes that we've had. Nobody talks about that
16.
anymore since they got elected. So these are, this is an effective way to keep the
Distraction.
over there.
And one of the things that, and again, I say this is our 21st episode of Unspun podcast.
I'd have a balloon and
Yeah, we're legal everywhere now. But one of the things that I always come back to is I come at politics, the spin of it, from a very citizen point of view. And I don't pretend to know everything about politics, but watching this, at what point, from my voter's perspective, at what point am I looking at John Horgan as the Premier of British Columbia, and it could be anybody who is in that role, with this much chaos in the legislature? At what point is it the Premier's responsibility to stop the chaos? Like,
he's got to wear this. At
it's
some point he has to wear
frustrating,
this.
But he's saying, I'm not an arbiter of that, Daryl Plecas, because when the Liberals offered up an
Well, there's a
MLA to
committee,
sit,
and,
but John Horgan's like, Daryl Plecas can be Speaker until Daryl Plecas decides he's not going to be Speaker. And I'm like, well, what if he's the problem? And I'm not saying that he is, but what if he is? What if there's more to this than the shell game that we're watching from the outside looking in? Because we don't necessarily seem to be getting all of the intel.
Rob Shaw brought this up, and he took a lot of heat on Twitter, I noticed, and in general about.
I love Rob Shaw, by the way.
He brought up the fact the cost of this whole process is going to be more than the money that will
That Craig James misspent.
Which also, by the way, are we getting that money back?
No, he's not. He's not going to.
We're not going to get a check?
No, they say that John Horgan, the Premier, said everybody's been through so much.
Okay. Well,
I would like that money back, because you know where we can put that money?
try.
You know where we can put that money? Into schools.
oh boy, here we go.
Okay. Oh, just don't even get to go and read my column.
It's a good one this week. I read it
Thank
today,
you.
and you and I have talked about this as far as the cost of, change the subject a bit, but I think we've
Yep,
kind of dwelt.
we've hit
Teaching is an important part. I have 3 kids. 2 are still in the school system, the public school system.
Same.
And I have the highest, and I know my youngest has ADHD, and so I know the challenge he is to that teacher.
Can you imagine having 35 of those?
Yeah, and I think there are 4 or 5 boys in that class that are.
And that doesn't even include the ESL students, who might all be from different countries and have not one word of English.
Yep.
And plus every other kid that's in there. 35 could be our new reality.
Yeah.
35 children in a classroom with one support. That's just not good. That is just not, that's a broken system. So I rant about that.
I know you did, and you brought up a thing that I hadn't thought about, which was, and again, talking about diversionary tactics. So we spent all those years fighting about the class size, which we lost, which the government lost. The Liberals were fighting this for years about class size. When they won it, one of the deals, when the teachers did win that, the negotiation, they accepted no raise, or what was it?
No raise.
No raise. So you're like, okay, well, that was effective. I mean, obviously it's going to cost the government a lot of money, but we are the least. You said the least paid teachers.
We
were
are
the worst,
among the
most expensive
the
province.
most expensive province. Certainly, the affordability versus the pay is completely the widest gap. We're on par with one other province, but just go one province over, and the base salary is like $17,000 a year more, just to go to Alberta. Why would you stay in BC?
Yeah.
As a teacher,
And we're desperate for teachers.
My son, say I'm going to rant, but you go read it. It's at the orca.ca. Well, probably where you got this podcast, unless you were downloading it from Apple or what have you. My son was in kindergarten when the strike happened, and he's in grade 6 now. And like, there have been so many dominoes that fell because of that work stoppage that affect kids. Because people are like, thank you for supporting the teachers. I'm like, sure, I guess I am supporting the teachers, because ultimately teachers getting help helps the kids. We need the kids to be good.
How many studies must there be that shows you that education is a key part of a society that operates efficiently and properly, and all those other things that we want? Yeah, where you have crappy mat leave, you have a crappy education system, you have all these things, and what happens? You lead to all sorts of social chaos, violence, and all those things.
And the kids deserve better, and not having enough teachers to staff schools is, we pay for it. We pay 16 taxes and then some. How many? I see the line item on my property bill. Yeah. I just got it. I'm like, there's how much for schools. Lots.
So it's transparent, sort of. I mean, of all the people are going, listening and watching this, going, what the hell is going on? George Affleck's lost his mind. He's talking like a socialist.
Right?
But I believe
I've spun him around, people.
Good investments leads to good returns.
Indeed.
And an investment in education and an investment in the future, which is our kids, is a good investment.
Agree. Okay, so there you go. And thank you for reading the column. You can read it too at theorca.ca. It drops every Wednesday. It's called The Middle. So at George Affleck is where you find this one. I'm at Jody with a Y Vance, Jody Vance. And you can always follow along at Unspun Podcast. And we're going to talk in a little bit about some of the hate you were getting on Twitter in the last couple of days. Yeah. You're like the Meghan McCain of Canada.
Okay,
but you're getting attacked on things that are just like, calm down. Like, calm down.
Yeah, we'll talk about the power of emojis.
Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott, they were going to be making the big announcement on Monday last week when we recorded the podcast on Thursday, right? We were all thinking, it must be going green, right?
No, I didn't. I said independent. I said independent. Or they'd start their own party.
Which, yes.
And I win. What do I get? Where's my glove?
Ding. Okay, so two things on this. We'll get to Jody Wilson-Raybould specifically, but watching Jane Philpott's announcement for me was, she's like, I'm done with being told by lobbyists. I'm done by big government telling me blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but so you were, like your whole career. Like the way she stated it to me, I was like, interesting. Whereas Jody Wilson-Raybould was like, I love the people of Vancouver Granville, and I'm going to run as an independent, and you already know my ethics behind this, and I agree with what you were saying with regard to running as an independent. It's a long way from the election, and there's no big money machine behind them.
And I will say there isn't. And by the way, related to lobbyists in Ottawa, it's really it's a really strict system they have in Ottawa for lobbying. It's actually really quite complicated. And so for her to say that is a discredit to a lot of nonprofits who are out there, whether it be the Cancer Society or whatever, who are there trying to meet with government to talk about their issue. They all have lobbyists, but they're all trying to do good work. There are, of course, people.
They're lobbying for a position.
You may not agree on something, but they're to just blanket say I'm done with lobbyists. I mean, what is a lobbyist? It's people that are trying to tell you about something. You may think it's terrible, and the public might think it's terrible, but most of the stuff that happens actually is people just trying to do good work. So it's interesting. She's got the evil cough disease that I had about a month ago. Anyway, so let's move the story forward, shall we?
Please do.
Well, yes. So because also what happened just today or yesterday with the SNC Lavalin.
Oh, I know.
Going there. It's happening. They're being prosecuted.
It's going to trial.
So
no deferred prosecution
but
order.
I thought the new guy was just defer that.
Wasn't that the reason why all of the kerfuffle with the Prime Minister's office?
And so the Prime Minister's office didn't do it.
And then when the new guy came in,
it's like, he's a patsy. He's just going to do what the Prime Minister's office says.
Didn't.
And then he didn't. So what have we learned here?
What we're about to learn is just how devastating this is all going to be for Canadians, because when it was sold to us as people don't understand that if this does come to charges, if this does go to trial for us in C-Lavalin, then Canada's going to implode upon itself with regard to infrastructure. And I don't think that's
I think people in
happen.
Quebec will be worried, but
Certainly, I'm not saying it's without repercussions, but I don't believe it's to the degree that it was blown up to at the time when the controversy and the back and forth, because it was explained 7 different ways before it was about the jobs. There's more going on here.
Well, here's the interesting question. So, how is Trudeau going to win the next election? So he's going to win with Quebec. Has he done enough fighting for Quebec in this process? I think he actually has for Quebec. Even though they're going to go to trial, they're going to have this prosecution. It's all happening. This big, giant Quebec company. I think Quebecers will look at the Trudeau and go, "You went to the wall for us.
You did all you could.
You did all you could without,
and maybe you did.
And we will thank you now in the next election, and he will win a majority because of that. I think because of Quebec. I think he'll lose 5 or 7 seats in BC. He'll lose maybe 5 to 10 in the Maritimes. He might break even in Ontario, might lose a couple. But if he wins all of Quebec, because NDP are just not getting there, and I don't see the Green Party pulling it, and the option for Quebec is to go with the Conservatives. I highly doubt that, and they're going to go for a guy who speaks French, who's basically a Quebecois, and I would think that will give him his majority. And so going back to Jody Wilson-Raybaugh's dream and Philip Bod's dream about what role they might have in this new government, much like I suppose in BC we have with the Greens and the NDP, where they hold the balance of power. But what have they achieved? They haven't got anything they wanted, really, the Green Party. Have they? I don't know.
Tolls off bridges.
That's great for the environment.
I'm trying to think of another.
The dam is being built up north. They were getting potentially a pipeline. So,
I'm trying to think of another
deal. So even if Jody Wilson-Raybould and Phil Pot got that magical thing where they were the balance of power, that they were that person that was able to decide. I just don't. Even when they did, which we have in BC, what difference does it make a big difference? Do you get what you want?
Right.
Because you're forced to decide. Well, if I don't do what this party wants, then the government will fall. And that's what the Green Party in BC are facing every day. They go, well, then we'll end up with
zero power. Yeah.
So,
and you've been saying that since the first episode of this podcast, actually. It's like everybody thinks, oh, that must be an agenda. And I interviewed Keith Baldry. I was filling in for Charles Adler last week. And when awaiting the announcement from Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, thinking, oh, well, she's got to be going green. That must be what's happening here. And, it was like, maybe not.
Why? How could the hypocrisy would be huge? I hate parties, but this party's okay. It wouldn't fly. There's no way it would fly. She would just be given the boot. Now, what will be interesting is that riding, because I think the Conservatives can win that riding. It's a swing riding. As long as they put somebody strong and with a name in there, I think the Liberals are having, I've heard, a challenge finding a candidate for that riding. But in the end, they probably will have a candidate for that riding, because if they don't, then she will win. And I think they might prefer the Conservatives to win in that riding than to have her win.
Is there something to be said about Jody Wilson-Raybould staying in the game, staying as relevant as she possibly can be, to maybe one day rise up the ladder?
Well, that's what her dad said. That was his latest thing, where you never know where he's going. But he said he can't wait to the government, something like to the effect that she can be the next leader of the Liberals. There are theories out there that say that this is her plan.
I think her messaging and the way she's managed herself in a very tight environment, she's very conviction is strong and messaging on point.
Yes,
she's
and of course everybody thinks, party politics and let's get away from that. But she couldn't have been deeper in party politics than being the Attorney General of Canada on the Liberal Party. That's pretty entrenched right there. So Trudeau saying, has said in the past when he ran, in 2015 that we're going to change the way Ottawa runs. Yes, he hasn't managed to change it in a big way, and he's had a majority. So it's a bit naive what she's saying, but she seems like a very strong, principled person.
And that's what we want.
But you also
in
have
government.
And she talks about I don't want to play games anymore, and politics is a deadly sport, I think she said, or a
blood sport.
Blood sport. Yes.
Yeah, you say that all the time. I remember when we were
either
talking
you
about
wanna
the
be
mayoral
within
race.
or- yeah.
When we were talking about the mayoral race, people have the best of intention when running for mayor, and then they get into City Hall and they realize, oh, these aren't my employees.
Yes.
I can't just say this is what's happening and then it happens.
Yeah.
It's a very different machine.
And if you
I
watch,
find that fascinating.
Yeah, and if you watch council here in Vancouver and the way they've been operating with this mixed council, you can see that certain people are getting, including the mayor, are getting a little exhausted by this process. I think there was even a debate they had, which they're not allowed to debate, which is to stay past 10 o'clock. It's a yes or no. You don't have a debate. You say, are you in or are you out? We can stay, and it has to be unanimous. And the other night, I think there was 2 people who were against it, and they were like, oh, come on, we want to get the business done. And the problem is, if there's a lot of business to be done, are you there till 2 in the morning? I mean, it really, and people have families. And so you could see a little side of the Kennedy Stewart on that night that was a bit like, okay.
Enough.
This is
people.
Yeah.
Let's pick this up tomorrow.
A little angry.
Yeah.
No, he wanted to stay.
Oh, he wanted to stay.
He wanted to stay. Yeah, he was getting mad because he wanted to keep going. Probably had something better to do the next day.
Oh, I see.
Anyways,
interesting.
But party politics and dealing with politicians and being within the system and understanding strong personalities and egos and people who are policy wonks. And I mean, I wrote an editorial about this when I was retiring from politics about there's policy wonks and there's people that are kind of the showboats. There's very seldom you're both. Like you're usually totally into the policy and total nerding out, or you're a show off. It's very seldom that you are both. And so what is Jody Wilson-Raybould? Is she a policy wonk or is she a showboat?
That's a good question.
It's a good question to ask lawyers about how they felt about her work as a attorney general. But
I will give her this because you bring a very good point to the table. She's very good at managing her narrative. So does that
Jody
make
Wilson
her
Raybould brand?
Yeah. So does that make
That's
her
a showboat?
A showboat.
That's
That's reading as.
There's nothing wrong with it, by the way, because Trudeau is one of those people. And
but you're a nerd.
I'm more. People don't think that though, but I get into the nerd more than I get into the show stuff. Even
it took me forever to pull you out, but we are now. But you're not in politics. I remember it was harder to get you to talk out about it because you were too busy being in it, trying to make it actually happen. You're like, I'm working on the thing. I can't come on.
Yeah, no, I get off on the stuff, the policy stuff, and the reports.
Can I ask you about John Cooper and the golf course in the city? What's happening?
Poor John.
I know.
Keeps coming. And Gregor brought this up about 5 years ago, that he wanted to convert golf courses. Well, he actually alluded to putting buildings, towers, and using this for housing. He specifically Langara golf course. If you're not from Vancouver, Vancouver has about, I think, 3 golf courses. Well, 2 big public golf courses. Free, great place to. They're like parks. They're totally green. They absorb a lot of the evil things in our environment. So they have trees and you know what golf courses look like. I played golf as a teenager. I haven't played much since, but as a teenager, I used to play.
100%.
Yes, I know. So, so their Green Party on the park board's bringing this back, even though Vision really did try and then got pounded down saying no. They want to look at closing these golf courses down and turning them into parks. You know, I'm going, okay, but if you go to Langara, you can actually access most of it. It's got a running trail around it. It's got tons of playground area.
It already is a park.
Part of a school.
It's a park.
At the end of it, it's a park.
Yeah, and if people want to golf and they find themselves in a position where they can't afford a golf membership or going to a golf club, they can golf.
Yeah.
It's like a free tennis court. You shouldn't put a building on that either, and you shouldn't turn that into a park because there are free tennis courts for a reason.
Yes, these are the lungs of our city.
Yeah.
I mean, parks are the lungs of our city, and by lungs, they have to have a lot of green on them. So to dismantle that in any way.
Watching people attack John Cooper on Twitter makes me viscerally angry. It does. I want to protect him. He is such a good-hearted person, protecting the pieces of our city, and it surprises me when people are so angsty about it. I did send you a note, I'm not sure if you had a chance to read it, about the new funding for bike lanes.
That we're getting from the province.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get that one. I saw it. I saw the Vancouver's getting $1 million, I think. I mean, we're already getting, through the regional transportation plan, the amount of funds that are set aside for transportation like that is significant. It's a huge amount of money. I don't even think we could spend the amount of money that's already set aside for that for bike lanes. Certainly for pedestrian infrastructure, there's definitely a need. But it's interesting. To me, that's a vote getter of some form to an audience.
Felt like that for me.
Yeah.
Because there are people who just want to talk about that 24/7.
Yeah.
Because that's how I get attacked on
But it seems early.
social
Why would
media.
they-
I know it does feel early.
Are we going to have an election? Is that what?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. Feels like it.
It feels early, but I mean, obviously there's lots of bike lanes in Vancouver. Some of them are unfinished. There's a lot of old bike lanes that were built by the NPA many years ago, 250, I think, kilometers of them, that are in need repair and fixing up. And I hope the money goes to that.
That would be great.
I like bike lanes. Hard to believe, I know, but I don't like terrible
Hey.
process.
Amanda,
I
wherever
hate
you
terrible
are,
process.
her head just exploded. Your wife's
I
head
hate
just,
terrible
Yeah,
process.
right.
If people aren't engaged and aren't part of that process or feel like they were deceived, that's bad. And that's what happened with the bike lanes in Vancouver.
Yes, some of the bike lanes choked the city in so many ways. Choked businesses, choked the ability for people to move around the city, and that put a lot of people off. Well thought through, well planned bike lanes are a gift.
It started the distrust of government in
Yes.
Vancouver.
Oh,
It
no
started
question.
that with vision, and that was in their first year, and it began their slide into obscurity where they are now, where they belong.
And on that note, let's talk about the odd happenings at the Vancouver Art Gallery board.
Yes, so Kathleen Bartels, who has been the head of the art gallery for 18 years. I've met her a few times. She seems always
Highly
very
respected.
brought in tons of money, was a big champion of the new art gallery, really spearheaded that process.
Feels like that plan's been in place for decades.
Yeah, well, yes, for sure, because I think it started with Gordon Campbell putting that money aside for it. So her contract was coming up soon, but now she's just gone. she's gone. And here's somebody, and so that what? And
Any
of course, they sent her a
inside-
letter saying thank you for your service. But come on, this is somebody who served 18 years. You would think they would celebrate her more, unless there's a reason they don't want to celebrate her.
Did they say in the letter why she was leaving?
It's just moving on to other things.
Just, more time with the family.
That's what I did. However, what I've put out there,
Yes.
because I've been a part of that process as a councillor, is that, and in the 2000 election campaign with Suzanne Anton as mayor, and I actually was at the press conference as the face of the arts community, because I had been involved in many arts groups before I got into politics. We had to put on our platform was that site where the new gallery is supposed to go.
Which is where?
At Larwell Park, it's called. It doesn't look like a park. It's where the old bus station was. It's right behind CBC. It's close to Stadium Sky train station. They just put a temporary modular home on it. So this site is massive and could fit 2 large towers. So the idea in 2011, and I think this idea still holds, is that site could underwrite.
Pardon me.
Yes.
Sorry.
That site could underwrite the cost of a new gallery by a significant amount. And it doesn't mean we have to sell that land. We could partner with that land. I would argue that Vancouver right now is going through a process for a new city hall. They will be presenting a report very soon about a new city hall. And that means really where the city hall is, but in front of it there's a whole bunch of opportunities for space. Because right now the staff have grown and we're a growing city, and of course
We
there's
don't
room
have
for
cocktails. How many communications people?
That's 43.
Drinking game. It's an inside
But
joke.
the staff are all in different buildings, and many of those buildings we lease from the private sector. And so it's crazy that we're just millions of dollars we're paying out when we could be in buildings that the city owns themselves. So why not look at that site, build a new facility for zoning, planning, all those people, engineering, all could be in one place. You could even put the city hall meetings there if you wanted to. And then build an art gallery with it. Or you could put a hotel there, you could put social housing, you could put whatever on that second part of the site. What should be done, I would argue, now that Kathleen, the champion of this new gallery, I think they need to go back to the beginning and say, okay, what should we do with the site? And how do we make this happen faster? Because my God, we're waiting to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to pay for this art gallery. She's done a great job.
To take over for her?
No.
Just dawned on me.
Oh, no.
No.
I don't know enough about art. I didn't know how to stick man. That's art. So anyways, I just think there's an opportunity
That
for
sounds
the
like
new council,
something to think through.
a new head of the art gallery. Obviously, the board has new ideas. Let's get it together and let's start to talk about. And it may say the same design. I don't say that design may not, that they have could
It's a
work.
little bit controversial on the
But
design.
let's
I
take
thought
a
it
look.
was cool
Let's look
looking.
at ways how we can pay for it.
All right, we are out of time. We could keep going, but Amanda from London will scream at us.
Yes. I'll just say my one thing.
Okay.
My tweets, when I make jokes on Twitter, I need to start putting more emojis on them because I got a lot of hate. I just put a thing
Just a
about
little smiley face, George.
or a
it's
wink.
Just a little.
I know. Clearly, people don't get my sense of humor.
I like
on
the high
Twitter.
fives. It calms people
Is that a
down.
thing? Is that, okay.
Yeah, I do the
or
high fives.
is that a pray?
No, okay. So, oh my gosh, McLean, this is for you. We were talking about
Yes.
whether or not this is a high five or
weeks ago,
prayer.
yes.
And he figured it out, because if it was a high five,
Yes.
there would be
Well,
a
that
thumb on one side.
Yeah.
Because when you high five, you typically cross, and
Oh, you
there's
do?
a thumb and a thumb.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that.
And when you prayer, and in the emoji,
Yeah.
there's no thumb on this side. So it's grateful, gratitude, prayer, zen, whatever you want to call it. But and if you type
So this is
pray, that'll come up. This is
This is
that's high five, and then there's the high fives.
okay.
the double
so
high five.
For those
That's
not
like me.
watching, so hands up, facing forward
Yes.
is the double high fives.
Yeah.
Coming together.
Together with the little blue sleeves is
Pray.
a prayer or is that right?
Okay.